Hey folks, it's your sweaty ass friend here, because I sweat like a pig and I've been moving computers, and I just went out for a walk in the summer sun and then decided to move computers, so that left me in this state. You could probably tell in the last video I sweat horribly. It's a curse. But I'm still building out the office. I'm going to work on building some benches, so I just have these melamine board tops that I'm going to use for my work surfaces. Hopefully that's the weekend project here. Trying to squeeze another video into the week, so I thought I would cover, kind of do another assembly video as I try and get things back together with another machine that needs a fair bit of assembly, and that is my VAX. This is the real one. The other one's the info server, which is cool and has a VAX in it, but without some modding you can't really use it to do mainly what I got this machine for, which is run VMS, because I find VMS history fascinating. But I'll stop rambling on, and I'll kind of go through these things and then put her together, and then maybe finally do like a little post-assembly tour, because I realized I didn't do that at all with the arcade cabinet, even though I said in the video I would. Okay, so I'm going to try and kind of whip through this pretty quickly, because there's a bunch of components. These are the power supplies, quite nice because they just slot into the back plane. So you screw them, push them, screw them. Got to do it in that order. And then they're in. That's a TK70 tape, which is a little bit on the fritz. Has a sensor in there for the tape position that I think needs to be blown out, which I tried doing with my mouth and didn't seem to have a lot of good results. So probably going to need to get some canned air. And then I think that will be okay, but it's kind of flaky right now. These are the DSSI disk drives. As you can see, I have VMS installed onto this guy. And that one, I can't remember if I still have BSD on it. I installed BSD on it when I first got the machine because VMS was a headache to install without, modern install media. And you cannot get install media for VMS on, tape. Nothing was showing up, and I wasn't willing to pay the kind of exorbitant prices. So anyway, started with BSD. But it runs super slow. So I got that info server and put VMS on that drive. And hopefully that still boots. This is the CPU board, which it's one of those. I assume the biggest one is the CVAX. It's just a single, fully integrated chip. I would love to have a machine with a more discretized CPU. This is what I got, and I'm happy that I have it. This is the corresponding memory board. I think it's like 8 megs. I'm probably wildly off on that. But as you can see, they both have these connectors on them because the VAX, of course, is 32-bit addressing because that's part of its whole appeal over the 16 bits of the PDP-11 series. But the QBus is the same between some PDP machines and these guys. So in order to fly over that top bit of addressing for memory, we've got these connectors, and those throw some more address lines between the boards, which is interesting. This is the network card. Not a ton to say. It plugs in with AUI. I don't remember what I had to do at this point, but this required some configuring, and that was one of the first places where BitSavers actually truly helped me for the first time. I've always found reading the old manuals there interesting, but never really needed them until I had to do this card, and I had to try and track down the BitSavers copy of this manual and figure out how the heck to get the AUI working properly, because it was half working and I was afraid it was broken, and then I finally figured it out, and I was so happy that it actually got on the network, because that meant net booting, which was like the only way to get information on and off this machine until I got the info server. So that was good. And then you have the DSSI controller, which there's not much more to say about that because, it's the controller for the discs. But one interesting thing I do know about it that I will probably never get to play with is that you can have multi-master on the DSSI actual device bus. So you could have one of these cards on each ends in separate computers with the drives in between them. And as far as I know, with VMS clustering, that will allow both machines to access those drives, which is kind of neat. This is the TK70 controller. Does what it says on the box, really. That little PLCC that's under that metal cover gets crazy hot, and it freaks me out a little bit because I feel like it's going to burn itself out, but so far so good. Then finally for boards down here, you just have, I'm fairly sure this is a Terminator board for the Q-Bus. I'm not totally sure. It might just be a load that needs to be on there for some other reason for the power supply or something. But you put it in there and it makes the thing work. And if you take it out, it does not work. So that's the point of that board. And then down at the end, this is... So I didn't realize for the longest time because, I don't know, I guess I don't look at terminals as much as I should. But this is a VT420. Which is fine. I mean, it's cool to have a terminal at all. That was one of the things that made me like talk myself into getting this machine. But this is not a 420 keyboard. It's a VT. Should have looked this up beforehand because they're the ones everyone knows. But it's the VT 300 or 3 whatever keyboard. So those don't go together. And if the 300 whatever key terminal would be way cooler to have, but I don't. But I do have a terminal, so that's super fun. And then finally, I have the whole chassis over here, which everything will slot into, and that thing is heavy as a motherfucker, and that's half the reason I'm sweating my ass off. Finally, over somewhere. Oh, it's back at the beginning here. Just some skins. You got the front panel, this kind of pedestal the whole thing sits on. It's got wheels under there that are hilariously useless. And then just a bag of it's the power cable and the plates that go on the front, because so the cards slide in and then the plates screw on over them, so it gets fully like it's not electrically isolated, but you know, keeps the radio waves from going out into the world, and it makes the machine look real cool. So with sweat dripping off my nose, I will set up the camera and put this thing together, and then go over it again at the end, because I fucking forgot. Okay, bye. I hope you appreciated that, because that is going to be the most boring part of the entire video. Yeah, the slide-in power supplies are great when they go in properly. I like how they put thumb screws behind a bezel that you have to use a screwdriver to take off. This case has these shock mounts that the drives slide onto, and they are deteriorating. That one just straight up is not connecting anymore. It is what it is. Also, if you can see it, there's your classic deteriorating foam all over the inside, which is fun. This thing needs some cleaning that I will probably never do. I also like, you probably won't be able to make this out, but they have a sticker on here, since this is not a keyed connector, that says this side, well, it just says this side. It's supposed to say this side up. I like how they did that instead of just fucking putting a key on it. There's a key in the connector on the drive. So I think that's everything in. I need to find a cable for plugging in the terminal. There's no serial cards in this machine. There's just a console port here. Getting more serial ports would be cool to run more terminals off of, but I don't know if that'll ever happen. These cards get so expensive now. So I'll go find that, slap the terminal in, and see if we broke this thing. Here, enjoy some hard drive sounds. So the hard drives kind of self-test when they come on. And I forgot I have them both plugged in. I was confused at first. I didn't have power into the other drive originally. But they make a grand old chugging noise. It's very big computer sounding. So it seems like she's coming up, which is good. I haven't tried booting the disks yet, so I'll try that in a second. It seems like the processor board has lost its settings, which probably shouldn't be surprising. So let's fire this up, and hopefully you can see the screen a little bit better, because it is dim. I did kill the lights, but you still got the light coming in from the window, and I have no curtains yet, so... There we go. So it does system tests for a little bit. And then it'll come up with a boot prompt in a second here. There we go. Okay, now I just have to remember what the disk ID is. I've forgotten all of my freaking commands on here. Maybe? That seems to not be doing anything, so I'm going to use the break key. There is a switch on the control panel for the CPU board that allows you to use the break key on the keyboard to actually halt the processor, which is nice. Let me try DUA1. Okay, I hear drive activity. I don't know if it's just the drive, like, doing self-maintenance. Oh, here we go. Hopefully we'll see a VMS boot prompt. There we go! VMS is still on there. Very nice. I hope I didn't just blow your ears off. Cool. Okay, before I go, I promised that I was going to do some walkthrough of the machine after it was put together, and I almost forgot to do that because I just didn't feel like it when I was done, much like last time. But I was sitting down to edit today, and I figured good time to do a couple things. One, I don't know if you can see behind me, I have a... I am so sorry about the screen flicker, just using my phone, maybe someday I'll upgrade. I've got a Pentium system running NT4, that I am using. I've got one of those serial cables plugged into the back with a DB9 side, and then it runs around, and I've got it plugged into that terminal port on the front of here, the console port. I was saying I couldn't remember what the status of this machine was. It boots VMS, but my license packs expired. They still license all their stuff. I mean, it's a very enterprise system, and so you need these pack files, these license files, to be installed on the system for it to run properly. So, how do you get one of these packs? Well, you start by emailing the OpenVMS customer lab at HP Enterprise. Hopefully do it now because it sounds like, and I actually can't remember the date, so it might be too late, they are ending the hobbyist program, as far as I understand. The hobbyist program used to be a way that if you weren't an enterprise user, you could get licenses for free just to play around with the system. I assume probably to try and drag in younger people into thinking VMS is cool as they enter the workforce. But anyway, they'll send you this email, and they will attach this hobbyist used final va.txt. And basically, there are instructions that come in the email. You need to take this, it's a script that will install all the license files, and you need to execute it on the VMS machine. Gonna try and move the file over to there, and then zoop it into that machine like we were typing it in. So, that's how you do that. Epilepsy warning, I do not have a camera that can change its shutter speed, so this monitor is about to be flashy AF. So I managed to not catch the recording of me selecting the file and putting it in and the start of this whole thing. But really all you do is, in the email, they say to run this create_vmspacks.com command, and that'll wait for input from the terminal, and it expects you to be typing out a file and then hitting Control-Z to end. But what we're doing is we're running that command, and then in hyperterminal, I'm going to transfer send text file, and I sent that text file, and that is what it is very slowly typing out over the line here, which is good, because I tried to do this through Minicom many a time from Linux, and it ran too fast. Everything was not timed right. The line endings, I believe, were screwed up. Either way, I could never get it to work. The only way I have ever gotten this to work properly, to send the whole file and have it be valid and executable when it's done, is to do it this super slow way through hyperterminal. But that's it. Once this file transfers across, you just type in @vmspacks.com, and it will execute this script and install the packs, and you will be licensed up and good to go. At least for me until 2022. But yeah, so the assembled thing, you can see there's the kind of bulkhead of the CPU over here, which is really stripped down in these later models where they just have a console and some startup option switches that don't do a ton. And then this is the network interface, which I don't have hooked up yet. You can do the BNC or you can do AUI. And then everything else lives behind these plates that keeps everything, keeps EMI locked inside of this box so it can't escape. It is pretty cool. Power flows in here, and then it automatically gets splint and sent across to both PSUs. So again, when they do go in properly, they just work. You don't have to plug them in. You obviously have to plug them into the drives. And the drives just sit in this cage over here. You've kind of got this control panel section that really doesn't do that much in practical use. I think these are for setting the identity on the drives. I haven't screwed with them too much. And then you've got write protect for each of the drives, which I am not going to poke now. And then the ready, these are basically like the mount buttons for the really old style drives that they carried over but don't have much use now. And then you finally have the halt switch, which you can halt the CPU here if you don't have it enabled from the keyboard, from the console keyboard. And then a run button, which runs the thing if it was halted. And finally you got the tape drive. And this is the Compact Tape 2 for the TK70 drives. You just pop open your drive, like that, pop it in, close it, and it'll start trying to spool it up. It's pretty cool. There's basically just a hook in there that fishes the tape out of the end of the reel and then sucks it over the other reel. And when you're done with it, you unmount it from VMS, and then you just hit this little unmount button, and then it'll try and reel it back in, which this part is also what sometimes has trouble with. Nope, it's running real well today. Maybe this is one of those things that didn't break in transit and in fact got better. I could live with that. Like I said, this is the DSSI signal coming out from the end of the cable that's threading through there weirdly. So it comes up from the DSSI controller card, snakes into here, attaches to the drive, and then comes out to this. And you could run a cable from this terminator to another box. By the way, we're after the weekend now. Look at the sweet bench I built. I have to build another one of those. It was a pain in the ass. But now I have benches. It's very nice. But that's it. That's pretty much how a MicroVAX 3800, I should probably check. MicroVAX 3800 looks and roughly operates. That's my biggest iron, and I think it's pretty cool, even if I don't use it that much. I really need to get a kilowatt and see how much power it draws in practice, because ideally I would either want to keep this on all the time or off all the time, depending on how much power it draws, because you don't want to keep power cycling older stuff. But she seems to run just fine. And like I said, maybe I'll make a video on VMS later on, but this is what it is. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next week if we keep these going. All right, see ya.